President Zuma was part of the ANC from inception. Even every negotiation. Today, Hole, Babola Gabaku, Baba Shokofeji, Mama Ilaka, Bola, Batova, Rekisha, Motola Palagua, Mujisha, Karo Shokofeji. Comrade Crisan would be with. I told people about this artificial or imaginary black unity. Now people
are lying to us.
Oh, I'm going. I couldn't give a one in my love. That's why I go, yeah. ANC has electrified 80% of the population of this country. They have access to electricity and running water. Now, once we want to talk as if ANC has done nothing, even in the midst of this high-level corruption, we are distorting the truth. And those who are ANC opposition, they will never find the real reflection of where we are. An organization called the IFP that believed in Zulu nationalism. It was a tribal organization that believed that they wanted to pull out of South Africa.
Before you get that, while you're still on the right, Constant Viljoen, what was his role and what did he do?
Constant Viljoen was...
do you remember the legend of Joma Marcel?
Yeah. I think one of the outstanding scars that the act of World Trade Center was an ambush. And that's when even President Mandela, the following morning, the evening, took to national TV and say, if ever this government cannot protect our people, I will tell the MK to go back to get their arms and we protect.
Hey, I'm going. Yeah. Today, Kikuila or our hot of Falanaguela, Kufila, Nabileniani, Unuko Paula, we are pale, Utlega in today.
No. Akere, we need to bring light.
Scalabalok introduce our Manwaka.
Yeah, fun work, Gina Madibe Mahlatji, Leisa, Maisa. Argana comedian. I'm poor.
Parquena comedian, Lucha politique.
Sorry, Hakabani German. General politique, Bamba Bonabasa. Lagavekilo. Yeah, another to a moment. Not very killer, Lagaveke, Rajoina, you know. So why banana? We are not political.
I could say, man, they agree people when they don't decide, when they don't agree with you politically, they will always cast aspersions on your character and the content of thought.
Yeah, because we are in the era of misinformation.
Yeah.
You sell out. You capitalist.
Yeah. Tell them or you are a diehard ANC.
Yeah, no. Now I'm a member of the African National Congress.
Yeah.
The Jamboree movement of the African continent. I'm a member of the Jamboree movement of the African continent. The African National Congress. 100 and something years. Yeah, so la laba tukamuka. Mokgatlo o thušitše go rebele democracy. Mokgatlo o ile ngwa ema ka ra mekgatlo ka moka le kgono sa eme. Mokgatlo o le mbeng ba ona ba hlokofetše. A so a motho ko a rena ka moka. So that's why re ka se o tlogele ko a badimo le batho. Mokgatlo o leng ready go lose power. Wa se šomiše mašole. Yeah, the custodian of the democracy in the world, you can say, in Africa as a whole.
He fashioned himself, but when I asked him, he said it's not him. ANC ke amasela. But he said it's not him who actually coined Amasela. It's actually Bantu Holomisa who said it in Parliament. He just used it frequently. Do you find this characterization of the ANC as Amasela, the thugs? There's another phrase, by the way, that is recent. They say, beware of the comrades. So in the 30 years, the ANC has lived this legacy of being thieves. And of course, you can say it's media spinning, it's media attack, but is it true?
It's not a media spinning. I'm not gonna be like that.
So the media is accurate in reporting?
No. It's not a matter of accuracy or disaccuracy. There's a saying that say a thief that has never got an opportunity to steal, he thinks he's an honorable man. There's a tendency of corruption in African leadership across the continent. There's a tendency of leaders. There's no ANC in Nigeria. There's no ANC in Uganda. There's no ANC in Swaziland. It's an absolute monarchy. There's no ANC in Lesotho. Yes, yesterday I was telling one comrade, I went to Lesotho around 2012 with a deal to produce animal feces gas. And Lesotho by that time it had a population of above 1.1 million population, but it had about 7 million population of cows and domestic animal. And Lesotho, I happened to reside in Botabote. So I was working from the DA's office. DA is equal to a premier. Just in Lesotho, Botabote. When I arrived there, Lesotho produced more diamond than Botswana. We don't even hear about it. And Botabote is one is a city. No development, nothing. No universities. University I know there is Lumkukwing, is sponsored by China. Boto is also sponsored by China. It's also there, I think, in Botswana and all that. And then there is an old Lesotho university. All I'm saying is that the amount of diamond that Lesotho produce can take care of every household. And the Lesotho National School doesn't even have to come to South Africa. Should be a heaven. But it's not happening. There is no ANC in Lesotho. So corruption is rife. You go to the United States of America, there is a lot of corruption everywhere. So it's a culture that is there in those who are given a responsibility to lead. And then it only get combated by the society on how they react on it and how patriotic is the society towards its own nation and what is the repercussions of corruption. So people will reduce corruption to one corner of the world. It's not. It's a common denominator factor now because of globalization, the opportunities, the money flow, you understand, in countries and opportunities and everything. So, yes, in the last 30 years, there have been a lot of corruption. And corruption doesn't happen only in the ANC.
Okay. What's the ANC legacy in the past 30 years?
We talk legacy now, ne?
Yeah.
ANC is the biggest human settlement initiator in the Southern Hemisphere. There's no country in the world that have ever built so many houses in the world, even private sector. The program of RDP, Reconstruction Development Program, but one of RDP about 1996. So I know Mepa South Africa, it again that Desmond Tutu as well as so for sure. The biggest in the world. It is left Brand Fisher. It is the extensions just social. It is really Cosmo City. in the world. You go to America, the biggest economy. Houses are not for free there. They call them social housing. ANC tia tu o fama o ba botso re go file ke a gago. Ne? And I always ask people, what are you comparing the ANC to? Let's talk about Africa. Let's talk about ANC's peers. Mozambique, Frelimo, Zimbabwe, ZANU-PF, Namibia Southwest, SWAPO, Chama cha Mapinduzi, Tanzania. Those are frontline states. I'm counting them. Zambia, Kenneth Kaunda. Oh, no, it's just a new thing. There was no organization there during the tenure of Papa Makosatif. During the tenure of Sobusa, there was no organization. I mean, it was just a monarchy like Lesotho. So remember, Lesotho in the liberation movement, there was no need. Now, Botswana, it has got its independence from Ian Khama, and then Kit Masere, the president, Kit Masere, Festus Mongai, and coming is a special case. Now, who are you comparing the ANC to? ANC have had the biggest pharmaceutical program in terms of chronic diseases in the southern hemisphere. It has had a distribution of healthcare, especially medication, of which it plays a role in the life of a person, as if they had this universal program called the National Insurance, what that America has and all that, to have the capacity to distribute. Now, ANC has done it without that thing. We are the biggest stockings of chronic medication in the world. We are in surplus and we give our people for free healthcare. Infrastructure is something else, but I'm saying healthcare and the program of healthcare. So ANC, it has developed, electrified this country. In 1994, electrification level of the country was about 30-something%. We are at 80-something% now. And we are the fastest growing in terms of development and new settlements in the country. But it's keeping up with that. That's why we even had a problem with Eskom in terms of load shedding. When I grew up, electricity and from there, most electrified places we get urban places. Now, as we speak, ANC has electrified 80% of the population of this country. They have access to electricity and running water. Now, once we want to talk as if ANC has done nothing, even in the midst of this high-level corruption, we are distorting the truth. And those who are ANC opposition, they will never find the real reflection of where we are as a country. They were doomed to fail. They need to take account of what the ANC have achieved. ANC did the mistake in 1994 when they came to power. They disregarded the role that played the homelands. Wontate Lucas Mangope, wontate Sien Paturi, wontate Kaiser Matanzima, wontate Lennox Sebe, wontate Ntsangwisi, wontate Mpepu, Venda, TVN, states. And then here we are now. We can see the importance of Wu University of the North. We have not built any other university of that scale in Limpopo. We still use that infrastructure. But I understand that they had to do that because they were representing a government that was oppressing our people. Even the anger of our people would not allow these comrades to be recognized.
Kalebala, I'm still waiting for the legacies. And
I gave you a legacy.
No. Yes. You are now distorting it by talking about the University of Limpopo.
But I'm saying
yeah.
the legacy of the ANC is the biggest human settlement in the Southern Hemisphere. Is provision of healthcare and medication to everybody indiscriminately. In South Africa is one of the few countries where all tests are positive today. You get ARVs the same day. So it plays a large role into life expansion of our people. And then I'm talking about also the electrification of rural areas. And then I'm also talking about the expansion of educational schools, building of schools, and also the expansion of TVET's college and also universities, of which we are still lagging behind. But in 30 years, what they have done is huge. I still ask a question: whom are you comparing the ANC to in Africa in terms of infrastructure development and what they have done in 30 years? Whom are you comparing it to in this third world continent called Africa? So
it will be difficult to find a competitor who we can match with the ANC toe-to-toe, and specifically because of what Joe Slovo has said, and I spoke to Prof. Snukwane about it.
Yeah.
It's the intricacies that are affecting South Africa are very different from what the rest of the continent is feeling. Yeah. Joe Slovo called it colonization of a special type, because he says the colonizer did not leave. And when the colonizer did not leave, it afforded them an opportunity to guard the paradises that they have made while they were living here. And so you are in a way not being left with their legacy because they continue living there. That, let's not confuse it. It has helped us a great deal. In fact, it also shielded us from the typical post-colonial civil wars.
Or a post-liberation.
Yes, because those were common in the colonial master destabilizing the country so they can continue to eat, because the civil war would have affected the Caucasians who were living there. You understand? So I'm saying but it will be difficult if I'm basing that on that.
As we talk about the civil war, I always say many people forget, and people forget is because our people, South Africa, the way is so comfortable, and us as South Africans, we like cheap politics that has no basis. We were in the brink of the civil war from 1991 and 1994, 27 December, 27 April. We were in the brink of the civil war. Kotesa 1 failed after we Wipato massacre, and the ANC leadership withdrew from the negotiation, and we were in the most difficult position. ANC had to provide serious leadership. We had what we call the ultra left, the PAC, and the AZAPO, and we had what we call the ultra right under the leadership of Eugene Delabranche, a former policeman from Heidelberg who was a hypeist, Papa, who thought the white people, South Africans, were rallying behind him. He was a political masturbator of note, that one, who didn't even understand material conditions. He formed the organization called AWB, AVP. That also was threatening the mid-right organization called the National Party. And they caused this country into ruin. And then we had another organization called the IFP that believed in Zulu nationalism. It was a tribal organization that believed that they wanted to pull out of South Africa.
Before you get that, while you're still on the right, Constant Viljoen, what was his role and what did he do?
Constant Viljoen was a former general of the military, South African SADF, and he led the war in the Caprivi trip. He was part of the Angola-Kitoganavari battle. Now, Constant Viljoen, he played a very large role because many people thought of him as an ultra-right person. But through the engagement of CODESA, the leadership of the black organizations led by the ANC, because remember the participation of the PAC and AZAPO, they were not that keen and very friendly towards most of the people who served the government of National Party. And Constant Viljoen was with the Lebranje gang up until when they stormed World Trade Center and wanted to threaten and kill the negotiators there. From there, he broke away and he formed Freedom Front Plus. But his role was to dilute the extremism and the ideas of the white minority right, ultra-right organization. And for some reason, there was some belief that Eugene Delbranche had faith in him that he might represent them well. That's why even when the Boeremark, the last case of the Boeremark, wanted to come and cause terrorism acts in this country, one of their target was Constant Viljoen, because the ultra-right Afrikaners still feel that he betrayed them. And also after the Mabatu ordeal, where AWP Front members were killed going to Putatswan. Yes. Now, all I'm saying is that people will distort the history of this country, because it's not many who will want to travel the memory lane and understand why we are here. Now, he's one of the people I regard very high, regardless of what we did when he was still a general in the SADF. But the role he played at the critical time of 1993-94, where even the enemy of progress or democracy was not only white, it was also the IFP. That was, they wanted a Zulu nationalism state, federal state outside of South Africa, and they would collaborate with anybody who promises them that.
Thank you. So you got to the place where I wanted you to do, the juncture where you are shifting into Zulu nationalism.
Yeah.
So you spoke about when a group of white men in downtown Johannesburg flocked with guns, intimidated. I don't even know what intimidated African people who were discussing. And I want you to draw the difference between when Shell House was invaded by Zulu men, should I call them impis, who were also carrying guns,
IFP members,
and traditional weapons. What is the difference between the two, and why did, when Mandela said protect Shell House, he did not say the same when the ultra-right
that was an
men? What was the difference?
No,
the
act of World Trade Center was an ambush. And that's when even President Mandela, the following morning, the evening, took to national TV and say, if ever this government cannot protect our people, I will tell the MK to go back to get their arms and we protect our country. Because remember, there was now a drift between the generals of the military and the leadership of the police, South African police services. Because now the negotiation in the World Trade House, in World Trade Center, they were going to a place of harmony. There was now going to be a constitution, a proposal of a constitution, transitional government and all that. But they committed so many crimes. And this thing of Truth and Reconciliation Commission was threatening their livelihood. And they were promised that they will be redeemed from that. But they thought the softness of that time President F.W. de Klerk doesn't guarantee them So they opted to collaborate with Eugene Delabranche. And Eugene Delabranche was nobody in terms of military and influence. He was just a policeman in Heidelberg. A mere policeman who was working in Heidelberg. In 1979, he called a meeting around October to talk about how the National Party is going to sell them, because now National Party was introducing what we call that tribe something parliament, where where the Indians and the coloureds were now included, but without certain rights into the parliament. That's where it started. Now, at the same time, even the generals, the military, they knew that Eugene Delabranche was nobody in terms of rankings or the stature in military. So they could, those who, he recruited those who didn't understand the issue. Remember, Afrikaner nation was built on military. And military men were given more respect than any other person, because they thought they won this country through military and Anglo-Boer War. So they are military driven. That's why even their generals, when they retired, they were given farms and they were respected up until. But no, Delabranche was just a hypeist. That's why I tell you, we know one papa. You know, tomorrow so he was that kind of a person. He was an hypeist, a miscalculative person by nature. So, but on the day, he managed to arouse many of his followers to go and break into World Trade Center. Now, with the Shell House massacre, it was a planned thing. It was planned, and remember, it was just after IFP announced that they withdrew. They're going to withdraw from negotiation and they are not going to be part of the election. You remember? IFP announced going back to election 6 weeks before elections, of which, that's why I say that South Africa was unstable. Something like that.
2 weeks, a fortnight before.
South Africa was unstable up until 1994, up until 27 April. That's how I will always appreciate the leadership of the ANC. It was unstable. There was never anything guaranteed from 1991 up until 27 April 1994. Now, they announced they went, and it was an issue of saying we are against the ANC because ANC is disagreed with some people in the white organization that we are going to election. That it was a level of unruly. And if you looked at the Wipato massacre, Kumalo Street massacre, Chokoza massacre, and everything, people died on the day, even towards the march. And the ANC had to show some character and confidence in the masses of South Africans that believed in it as a custodian of the democracy and liberation of their country, to show that we have a capacity to defend our organization. I'm
bringing you back to Shell House deliberately because I want you to explain to people what was Shell House for ANC and why was important for, because in Shell House, Mandela did say,
I give the orders.
I give the orders to protect Shell House. Yes. Why was it important? And, well, you did give a comparison. You said the other one was an ambush. This one was calculated and it was preempted.
Yeah.
So, but just for the audience, explain to them how important was Shell House for the ANC.
Shell House to us was headquarters. It was a national key point. You can say that. It was the offices of the ANC. It was a sign of hope. It was a last. It's like when you talk about Khotso House in Britain, you talk about Lusaka. We even sang about those places because they were very significant in terms of ANC and its.
Are you afraid to use the word revolutionary house like Malema did?
No. It was, but it's overused. I'm not gonna. Use the revolution. Revolution. Whatever. But it was very significant. It was the headquarters of the African National Congress. And I think no one would have allowed such an organization to be bullied by people who have no interest of the nation. Remember, ANC was very clear that they want a nation called South Africa to be united. But those ones, they wanted their own federal state outside of South Africa. So they were not much in the interest of any other person except themselves.
Around that time, in political speak, a word was trending in almost all press conferences. They called it third force.
Yes.
And
yes.
that provocation, because a lot of historians call it a provocation, because of course, even in modern days, you would find whether it's MK, whether it's IFP, whether it's ANC or EFF, they would deliberately go into another one's what called stronghold or whatever. They will march there as a sign of provocation.
Yeah.
So at the time when IFP went to Shell House, they were marching to Shell House.
Yes.
What was the intention? Was it in good spirit? Because people say it was nothing more but provocation, and in fact, more like intimidations of inciting violence. And it was sponsored by a third force. Please just break it down for me. Who was this third force, and what do you call that march?
Look, people tend to forget because things miraculously have changed after 1994. IFP was a sign of fear and death to most of our people. We know they would kill indiscriminately in trains, killing indiscriminately in locations, and there was a unit of the IFP that went to train in Caprivi Strip, in between Namibia and Angola, by the SANDF generals. And the president of the country at the time, FW declared that he had no knowledge of that operation. And we were told that when they come back, this is stability units, it was going to militarize the IFP, and they were gonna continue with their spree of killing and causing violence and instability towards. Remember the date, the date of election was already out after the death of Comrade Krisani, and then there was an escalation of certain dates and everything. So if it was not going to be combated with force, people will not go out and vote on 27 April. So it was beyond ANC's interest to combat and stop, bring it to an end, that particular march of IFP to Shell House. So it is big. It was significant in many ways. So people were afraid. We used to even when at that time it was not easy for any other tribe to marry a Zulu, because they would say, hey, it was that time. The people, IFP represented fear to many of the people, and that's why even there was forced in around 1991-92 to start forming SDUs, self-defense unit, to defend our own people. Because at that time there was an understanding that MK will not come in the country, because then the country will be more militarized, and it will be it will show bad faith towards the negotiations of Codesa and finding democratic South Africa, going to election of one man, one vote.
All right. So we have transitioned from what people call it the brink of a civil war.
Yes.
Because of Eastern Township in particular, the Kathoras, all those hostel and versus the township and stuff. And we transitioned to what is called Government of National Unity. Tell me what composed on it, and was the level of trust, how difficult was it? And so we are talking about administration and implementation of the basic things, because you remember immediately after Act 108, Cyril Ramaphosa and Ruth Meyer came in and stuff just to stabilize the country. So it is said that when these comrades came, they found empty offices.
Yes.
For example, they disarmed Pelindaba power station.
Yes.
Those things were disarmed and stuff. So just explain to me this transition, this difficult transition, and how trust was it?
Look, according to me, with the knowledge that the small knowledge that I have and understanding, analyzing dynamics, in my view, people will always say we 2004. I mean 2024. It was 1994. They were right. In 1994, if you look at the demographic and the election results, they have similarities of 1994. Remember, we went to election. When we went to election, Hannah Skrill was a premier of Western Cape. Western Cape, of which was under National Party. And
then after the elections?
We never won Western Cape.
No, after elections?
Yes.
Okay.
Hannah Skrill was a premier of Western Cape. National Party got an overwhelming majority there. KZN, we lost it to IFP. The premier was Raymond, I'll remember the name. Frank Mdlalos. That day Frank Mdlalos was the premier. In Gauteng, we won. The premier was Tokyo Sohale. Gauteng was not Gauteng at the time, was still called PWV area. Pretoria, Witswatersrand, Vaal. Yeah. So, and then in Mpumalanga was Matthew Posa, Ngagora Matlodi, Manedi Picho in Northern Cape, Popomolefe in Northwest. So we won 7 provinces. And you go to national, we had ministers that were from IFP and ministers that were from ANC in a black organization. AZAP was not part of this election. And it would elect Ilea Shalamrao permanent. They never recovered. They were not part of this. They boycotted it. They were not part of this election. Now, if you say what happened, you know, many people will always call Nelson Mandela a sellout. But that was the man that did impossible. And those who call him a sellout, they have a luxury of talking because they were never in such a situation in their life. And not many of us will ever be in that situation. Even now when the ANC lost the majority of getting 50+1, you cannot compare the situation from that one. He had to bring everybody together. And intellectually within the IFP, Ndebele was a deputy minister. He brought all those intellectuals who were in some black parties who participated into the election, including the National Party, and to form a government of national unity. There was no trust. The comrades will say that there was no trust in the police force. There was now time for integration. It was a mess. But nobody like me and you who saw that mess because there was a serious stewardship of the great leaders of the ANC that made sure this thing worked. They brought Comrade Kajabu Telezi as one of their own, whom they was a member of the ANC before Afoma Inkata Yenkuleko Esizwe, turning it into a political party later. They brought him and said, we are here now. And that's what ANC is outstanding about. Understanding material condition and say we are here now. What we do, we continue or go outside, spill the beans or kill or whatever, or we come and become a part of the government of national unity. It was unstable. Nobody ever thought it would live longer, like people saying this thing won't work now. Ile abare 99 Mkhala was bela regula pile ya gagai kwa tsena Comrade Thabo Mbeki, and there was continuation and there was purpose. There was nation building for us, and there was still peace in our land programs that way, because people were still wounded across the board, and there was no trust in anything, and there was no trust. There were still people who were regarded as warlords in both the ANC and the IFP, because towards 1994 South African democracy and South African instability was reduced between black and black violence. And it was a third force reactionary organization that said, no, let's shift. We want to do what we did in Mozambique through Renamo and Frelimo. It must be reduced. There must be a chaos. But it is proven that it was the outstanding leadership of the collective leadership of the ANC under the leadership of President Mandela that brought stability in this country. Not peace, stability. Because peace was far-fetched. Stability was the most important thing. A stable country with working institutions.
Beneficiaries of this, I don't want to call it a democratic order that was stabilizing. When Dr. Van Zyl Slabbert,
1987,
when he organized intelligentsia, the business community and the politicians, and he went to neighboring countries to go and talk to these comrades. I mean, he did not do it once, and they came back, and amongst other criticisms, unfortunate or otherwise, is the fact that, of course, the ANC was in a corner, and that's why they decided not to fight anymore, because since the 60s they said they were going to win, but there was no way they can defeat Sandaf. But they came back.
Who was not in the corner?
Yes, wait. The ANC was in a corner. Dr. Van Zyl Slabbert, of course, admitted, and even the Boers, they admitted. That's why the referendum was won. The referendum was won based on, because they knew that we are all in a corner. Let's just... Yes, so it was a stalemate.
South Africa was in a corner.
Yes, it was a stalemate. But here's the thing. They sold, because this is... People may not understand selling. That's why people are calling them sell-outs and stuff. People, they may not understand this selling. So the actual selling was the African population was a sitting commodity in themselves. Because if we are allowed as Africans to go and work, bonds will be there, a lot of things will be there. There were a lot of economies that was in our hands. And a lot of millionaires were created based on the fact that they opened the economic scales and reduced segregation. This selling out, whether right or wrong, it is what most people talk about. I'm not saying everyone, it's what people talk about. But then over and above that, there are people like your Motsepe, Maisa, unfortunate because he's always the most quoted one. Ramaphosa.
Professor Mahanyele.
Yes. They became millionaires based on their political credentials more than their business acumen. Is that criticism fair? Because when they talk about BEE beneficiaries, they're talking about people who were closer to the ANC. Is that criticism fair?
I don't know why people talk about selling, always talk about the meeting of Slabbert and the first meeting in Dakar, 1987, led by a delegation of Comrade Mbeki. They always refer to that as a point of sellout. ANC has never said they are rebels and they want to win ultimately through armed struggle. Negotiation has been there's been always their strength. That's why even Comrade O.R. Tambo was addressing your UN organization that were formed for resolutions through dialogue. So you must appreciate the fact that there was a need for certain South Africans to be move into the commanding sector of the economy. Now they are reduced to insults and everything, because of they will be told. And BE was a program that was agreed upon by the ANC, and to say we need to infiltrate the commanding sectors of the economy and have our own people there. And your affirmative action, it was not only BEE, there was affirmative action.
Employment equity.
Yes, employment equity. Now, my father was a beneficiary of affirmative action because he was working for JCI.